Growing a business is hard, but it does not have to be. Once a week, we take a break from the hustle and bustle in business to talk about innovations and what's new in the C suite. This is the Fractional C-suite Retreat, and I'm Joseph Frost. Pull up a seat at the fire, grab a drink, smoke a cigar, and just join me as we relax, learn, and get inspired. This retreat is sponsored by your CMO, helping organizations grow with better marketing strategy. Welcome. I'm excited for today's guest. Not only does he have 25 years of sales and marketing and advertising experience, he started his own company 15 years ago, and that really spawned for his love of music that turned him into a failing musician and aspiring marketer and sales professional, and also his interest in gambling that turned him into a perfect entrepreneur because we gamble every day with our business as we go forward. So curious to dive into those topics, but before we do, welcome Marc Case with BD Pros. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. It's fun to be here and talk about some fun stuff together.
Yeah, let's just get started. What's one thing you think the C-suite professionals need to be thinking about these days that maybe they're not? And it can't be AI.
Yeah, no, I mean everybody's talking about that right now. I think it's, kind of still the humans playing along with the AI, and I think everyone's really excited about how AI and automations can take these folks out. But from my perspective on the sales side in particular, there's still a lot of human connection that's important, and finding the people who can play properly within that and choose when to bring these technologies to bear, and then also choose when a relationship actually is the better route than just trying to go full AI stuff. So I know you said not to say AI, it's sort of there, but yeah, I'm thinking it's really trying to lean on the human beings who still have those types of connections that can work alongside.
Yeah, I think the human aspect is um, very critical for people to be thinking about today from multiple perspectives. Not only how does a human leverage AI to be more productive, or how does a company leverage AI to replace humans? Now, that's an issue. But I think most importantly is how do we be sensitive to this environment where we have many employees and team players that just don't know which direction AI is going to go? Is it going to take their job, or is it going to make them more productive, or is it going to do something completely different? And that sensitivity and just that
I think,
conversation.
I think that's a great point because, there's a long period of time. I mean, I was raised in an era before Google even, so, it's selling back when selling was suitcases and shoe leather. But, always having been empathetic, but then being held to quotas, and it was pretty robotic the way they would treat the human at that point. Like you hit your number, you're fired. So you get kind of used to that. But now on the other side of it, it's, try to help people understand how to navigate. So if you're a leader in the C-suite, or a leader as I am, and you are, you're trying to help people find their place in this. And some people it's very confusing for, because their job may have been very kind of robotic, in a way that it could be replaced. But helping them kind of take the next steps and also find, a new passion potentially that will help them get better in their career is good. And I also think, especially on the B2B side, there's still a lot of us who buy on relationship. I know we have to justify costs. I know we have to justify efficiency. But if I get the choice, I really still want to work with someone that I like and I trust. So I think that part still needs to be elevated in this conversation without taking away from the efficiencies we can gain. But let's continue to remember the uniqueness of being human.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Sales is probably least likely, at least B2B sales and that kind of sales process that has humans already in it, is least likely to be replaced with AI, whereas the kind of online inside sales um, transactional process is probably
Yeah.
most likely to be easily replaced with
Well, and I
AI.
think even for us, I mean, when we first started, people would compare us to a telemarketing firm, or a lead gen or appointment setting firm. That's never really been who we are, but it's a part of it. I think at the top of funnel, there's probably a lot of room for automation. There's a lot of room for, data being crunched differently, because, a salesperson's job back in the day was also collecting information and finding out who's the buyer and what they could do, and, populating that. You can do a good chunk of that now. Still humans helping pick the right part, but there's a good chunk of that that could replace someone who's just randomly cold calling as many times they possibly can to get a name. You know, that type of stuff I think is going to be difficult to defend, if that's your job.
So what type of client do you typically serve?
A lot of manufacturing, who sell through distribution. We've been doing that pretty successfully for a while, so we can go direct on their behalf to find big clients. But through the distribution model, it also becomes sort of marketing like tasks, helping them set up, webinars or going to trade shows on their behalf and trying to just build pipelines and relationships. Obviously, there's a lot of math and data to that, putting it in their CRMs. But there's still a lot of human contact, especially post COVID again, where trade shows matter, going out to lunches and dinners, they're highly scrutinized differently than they used to be, but some of that stuff still really works in our space. And we've got several other areas we do well in, but that's the bulk of it right now.
So is that where you started out your sales career in manufacturing?
No, I actually started out in advertising because I loved it. I wanted to work for an ad agency. It turns out I wasn't that creative, so I had to be in sales. I couldn't. I thought I was creative, but then you meet a creative and you realize there's a big difference between thinking you can play an instrument and writing songs and all kinds of things that would dovetail into that. But anyway, I wound up through a family friend, my dad's friend, who was in outside sales. I went to school for marketing, and expected an advertising thing, but he took me out. He was kind of a cool guy. He's, having a cocktail at lunch and he's telling me, you don't want to be in advertising anyway. They sit up in there all day long and they don't get out of the house and blah, blah, blah. And this is the 90s, whatever. Wasn't that long ago, but this guy was from the 70s, sort of old school, having his drink, having his smoke. And he's like, what you want is to be out there doing stuff, seeing people, getting deals done and getting paid and all that. So he made an impression on me. It was kind of the cool way that I already been rejected from the thing I thought I wanted. And so kind of needle your way around. I wasn't really good at it at first, but over time you start to get good at rejection and realize it's just a game sort of. And then you find your personality and all this stuff happens. And then the freedom, frankly, that comes with being an outside sales rep is, long before I was a business owner, I was a business owner. Being a sales rep, you got to own a book, you got to build a book, you got to defend your book. People try to take your book, all kinds of things back in those days. So it was kind of a left, but back to center. And now I own a business development agency where I have, access to creative people, far more creative than me. And we need projects done. We can bring in freelancers to help us with that. So, a long way around, but kind of still got there anyway.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, it's like I can picture the Mad Men story of
Sort of.
your mentor just sitting there sipping a cocktail telling you
I'm telling you, he's got a name. I think it's okay to say it. If not, you can bleep it out later. But his name was Don Raffaelli. He's just one of those characters from a long time ago. Unfortunately, my dad passed a few years ago. I don't know. I've not kept in touch with Don if he's still in this realm with us. But man, what a greater mentor with only spending a few minutes with me here or there than some of the other folks I spent years with. It's just that impression somehow flipped my brain in a different direction. So, and that, you know what? Just throw it out there. That's the human, right? It's just a guy who's kind of cool. I'm young. I'm impressionable. I'm a dude who wants to do cool stuff. I thought with a band or agency, I just found another way to be sort of cool in my mind, I guess.
Well, I started down the path of chemical engineering out of college and quickly found my way to sales about 25 years ago as well. And I was sitting in an office doing engineering work, and I would get the sales reps come in and talk to me and take me out to lunch and show me these, cool new pumps and filtration equipment and, whatever. And I thought, wow, your job's really cool. Mine's really boring. And that was what, was my flag. Like, that was my Mad Men experience. Not quite the same.
Yeah, the right guys. There's a whole bunch of people who just kind of phone it in, unfortunately, and that's just what it is. But those of us who took some passion to the game, it's fun. It can be fun. I don't know why I ever stopped just being a sales guy, why I decided to be a manager. That's it's not as fun as being a sales guy. And being a business owner, even worse in some ways. So, one day I might just get back to being a sales guy, and I'll maybe mentor the next generation of what you can be as a lone wolf. If that's still going to exist, who knows? But it's an interesting journey for sure.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing it any differently, but I do think back and wonder, or I just reflected how enjoyable it was just being an outside salesperson for about 5 years, and
Yeah,
the freedom and the flexibility. But it is the skill set that I think I had to develop at that time to become
yeah.
a productive entrepreneur. Because
Yeah, I felt
entrepreneurs sell every day. Like you
a
sell your
100%.
ideas internally, externally, partnerships, raising money every time. If you don't understand how to sell, you can't grow a business.
No, and I think too, I probably started off with I mean, I feel introverted, but I think people would say I was an extrovert growing up. And I think, some of that came easy, but like the skill though of being a good salesperson is different than just talking a lot. To understand how to move things forward, when to lean into confidence. I mean, I read all the books and had the training to handle objections, but when you get to the end of it, it's kind of like playing the right note. You could learn a bunch of guitar notes, but it's the right note at the right time. And it's not manipulation. I've been teaching people that for years. I'm like, if you think sales is manipulation, you should get out. I think you're really a project manager for someone trying to anticipate their needs and help support them, or sometimes tell them no. I mean, walking away from deals that you could make money on is one of the smartest things you could do sometimes too, to actually be a professional. I think some people miss that in the training where you really have to want the best for them. So to the entrepreneurial thing, like you said too, without that skill set, I don't think you can do this. Or at least you better have someone you can trust who does this, because, it's very, to have, like, I've got a lot of friends who are engineers, smart guys. Once you get to know them, really funny, but they don't start that way. It's hard for them to get in front of people and have these types of chats without getting so deep on something where people just kind of tune out, especially now with our attention spans.
Yeah. What's one book that really stood out to you? Sales book.
Oh, um, it's one that people probably don't know. It's a guy by the name of Jerry Stapleton. Was a sales coach here in Milwaukee years ago. I'd read some other things, Dale Carnegie stuff, the standards, but the business owner I was working for at the time had been working directly with this guy, and he wrote a book called From Vendor to Business Resource, and this is in the 90s. And he had helped transform some sales teams at FedEx and a few other places. And I just found some of his stuff to be kind of mind blowing to me, with some skills in it too, about business fit and political fit and like how to actually connect without using tricks. It was one of the first books outside of Dale Carnegie stuff that I read that wasn't really trick based. It was really, you have to become a partner, otherwise you're going to be extinct. He was saying that 30 some odd years ago. You can't just, if you're just going to go pitch and pitch and pitch, you're going to lose to guys who become consultants to their companies. And he had a decent framework within the book that I still use parts of today. So it's an odd one, but I still have one on the shelf somewhere in here.
Yeah, that's great. My favorite book, it was probably just because of when I read it, and I needed it the most, was Spin Selling. Did you
Oh,
ever read
sure.
that one?
Yeah.
That was kind of the source of all my sales knowledge. And then I've read several since then, but I always revert back to Spin. And then I also was fortunate enough to be in a company that put me through counselor salesperson training, which was essentially the same author
Yeah.
built a workshop to teach some of those fundamentals. And
Well, one of the publications I worked at too, so outside of sales books, they would promote strategy. Sometimes they'd have authors come in and speak. So Blue Ocean Strategy, Good to Great. Um, and there's another odd one out there. I don't know if you've heard of the 48 Laws of Power. That's
yeah,
an interesting one because it's not sales. It's sort of strategy. It's also history. If you like that stuff, and you can get really deep on, angles that you take and reasons why and creating scarcity. And, those are all tactically, but like if it feeds your mind right, it just becomes a part of you too. So yeah, there's a lot. As I start thinking further, there's a lot in there.
so you mentioned a career in marketing, sales, and advertising. How do you differentiate between the two historically, and then like moving forward? How do
Yeah,
we
that
continue to
that
differentiate?
that's hard to say. I think people who are better than at each of those would probably define it a little differently. I see them as kind of all feeding the same kind of goal though, and that's revenue generation and repeatable, transferable opportunity, right? So on the marketing and advertising angle, when you're building your brand, clearly you're going to be able to sell better. I was just having a conversation with a potential client today who has built a really cool piece of software, but they are not Facebook and they are not Apple and they are not name them. So, I am skeptical about their ability to achieve their goal in the short term because, yeah, we can go out and sell it, but it isn't really marketed well yet. People don't really know of anything and what makes it any different. And at some point, we're going to make 1,000 calls. You're going to fire us because we failed as salespeople in your mind. So I know that's not exactly an answer, but what I found over time is, especially now at BD Pros, we're looking at all of those budgets and deciding how are you spending it and is there a place for us to go? It's not just a sales budget, marketing, or advertising. What do you want to accomplish? At bigger companies, they have very specific like marketing goals, advertising goals. But when a lot of the clients we deal with are kind of mid or small, and they don't have Facebook money to create that awareness. So what are you really going to try to do of these pieces to bring it together? So that's not exactly specifically an answer, but it's close enough for me, I guess.
Yeah, I think I look at, and I'm a salesperson and a marketer at the same time. So I feel like I'm stronger in sales than I am in marketing, but they're very common. There's a lot of commonality, but I look at marketing as the big circle that connects the prospect with the product and service, and I think that's marketing. And then I think sales is sits inside of marketing, and so does advertising, and so
Yeah.
does other things. And that's my marketing kind of centric
Well,
thinking.
I like that. So previous to this, I had started a company with a partner called Gravity Marketing. And our concept was that we're going to try to attract people closer to you so you can pick them off. So sales is going to pick them off, but we're going to create gravity around your brand. It was kind of our little trick to, so what does that mean? Well, it could mean a lot of things. It could mean trade shows. It could mean PowerPoint things. It could mean better decks. It could mean better talk. I mean, there's, name it. But all of that to serve, get them closer to you so we can actually bring them in the boat, and make them a client or whatever it may be. The conversion, because that's where some people still like, depending on what you're selling, marketing can help convert and potentially be a sales channel. I see that being more relevant in B2C though. B2B, you can get pretty far down a rabbit hole with your marketing efforts to get someone educated and ready to say yes. But still in B2B, it's kind of like you still need the leg drop or, a finishing move somewhere in there to actually make them a client.
Yeah, yeah, you still need that sales piece for most anything to cross over the finish line. But marketing makes that easier, ideally.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I said that to clients for years. I'm like, if your iPhone, you sell before you even produce the product
Yeah.
because of marketing and awareness. If your Mark phone, you probably don't sell any ever, no matter how many calls you make. So,
And do you think back when we first started selling, because we're about the same timeline, and the marketing back then was give me a sales sheet, give me some sort of one pager that I can take out and give
yeah,
it to the client and walk them through the features and benefits and leave it behind, or give me a Granger catalog that has all my stuff in it,
yeah.
that I can get some calls for that way. It wasn't anything like it is today.
No, and so at the time I had a brief stint selling uniforms, towels, and mats for a while, and my trunk was full of samples. So,
Yep.
man, I literally sample guy walking out sample carpets and towels and chemicals and things like that. So yeah, I'm kind of sitting out there doing the with this watch or that watch kind of a thing, and then the marketing team would come out with a better pack, a demo pack than the other competitor, and get a little advantage because someone understood quicker, maybe because I brought that tool out. But yeah, very, very different than it is now.
I think that's why salespeople have such a fundamental understanding of marketing, because they, in a sense, at least more experienced salespeople have do a lot of marketing within their sales role.
Yeah.
Uh, lead prospecting, lead generation, list building. That's all marketing. They got to think like who's going to use this product. How they got to know how I'm different. And so when we go into engagements at URCMO, a lot of times we are replacing the and marketing hat from a VP of sales or someone who's been in that sales leadership role,
Yeah.
because they've done it so well, but they get stuck at a certain level.
Well,
And
that's it. And when I sold for a publication years ago, your most of your deals, 80%, you're going to sell contracts year over year. I had some banks, I had some bigger telecom. You try to lock them in for the year and you're going to run 13 ads in our publication. You're going to get this, this, and this. But then there's a group that didn't buy the year contract. And at the time, before all the, CRM stuff, I did mail merge with my Outlook and my Word
Oh
doc.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah, and I had a Palm Pilot that had Act on it for me because our company
Yeah.
didn't have a CRM, but I had my 3,000 contacts or whatever. But I segmented it down to the people I'd already met, so this wasn't cold. But CMOs and bank presidents, and I'd put them in the group and test it. I think I'd 30 or 40, and say, hey, I know you didn't take advantage of our annual program for the blah blah, but I got this special coming up, and here's 3 sizes, and here's what I can do that in my mind is sort of early automation. Every quarter I'd pick up a few
Yep.
and someone would reach out, oh, hey, thanks for thinking of me. But I'm thinking of 40 of you at the same time, while
Yeah.
I've my bigger relationships that are paying for my rent, that I'm taking out and all that. These are folks I want to stay in touch with. And sometimes they converted into annuals, but sometimes they're just spot players. And that to me was my marketing cover fire that, let me go on vacations and buy some golf clubs or a guitar here and there. Cause I'm making my nut on making sure that the full time is there. But I'm like, this is a little hustle, I can't make these calls every week because they won't listen to me. But so that was early on for me, the power of, okay, let's group this together. Let's use some tech here. I mean, obviously it has dramatically changed over 25 years. I'm not doing anything special now, but then that was a little bit of a unique, how do I get a little extra going on by multiplying myself, so to speak.
I think what we're going to see, and I'm curious what you think, moving forward with sales and marketing, I think there's going to be a bit of a renaissance with the old school way of sales
Mm-hmm.
because it's become so noisy and automated and artificial online and virtually and remote, and that those those meaningful in-person visits and moments are going to start being what's unique and what's maybe necessary to convince somebody that you've got a real product or service because you showed
Yeah.
up to their office now or you met
Well,
them
and I
for
think
coffee.
I think that's true. The other thing I'm finding, like post COVID, I mean, I don't like Zoom because I don't see like looking at my face, so I try not to. It's what we all kind of get that way. I've gotten used to it, so it is what it is. But what I have found is some of the group meetings you do on Zoom can create part of that because we're all getting better at emoting through this, like even grabbing the screen or something. Because at first, everyone's stiff and trying to be, best camera face. I'm like, I don't have a face for TV, so you just have to get used to who you are. But once you are, it's become another way to be authentic, oddly, at scale. Because I couldn't be on all the meetings I'm on today in all the parts of the country if I had to travel. So I love the in-person stuff, but this is becoming, okay, it's decent with the right people.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's effective with from a sales perspective if you already have a relationship or even getting new relationships started. But from a marketing perspective, I think that we're going to revert back to much more traditional in-person marketing opportunities as the digital landscape continues to get noisy. I think
I tend,
events.
I
are
tend to
big.
agree. We actually, through another channel, we offer trade show support services for clients who don't know how or don't have the manpower to either man a booth or walk a floor. They're both valuable, or just be in attendance, and wear their jersey. We wear their polo and you walk around and, you're gathering leads, so to speak, that way, but building relationships on their behalf and bringing them in, like the doctor, when it's time. And that, we found that to be very effective. We could make 1,000 calls and get almost nothing. And sometimes we hit a trade show for a day and you got 5, 10 good things that you might have spent, I don't know how much just trying to dial them up, and we're trying to, experiment with different things because yeah, sometimes phone calls still work. Sometimes cupcakes still work, and something I said the other day, I'm like, everything works sometimes, it's just, now you have to be the doctor who figures out, well, at what point do we try this and how much can you afford?
Yeah. What else do you think is going to change in 2025 from a sales and marketing
I mean,
perspective?
already I've got sales reps here who are GPTing everything, so the change, I think everyone's going to try. I think the change is going to happen or will happen is the better ones are going to use it appropriately, much like those of us who used research on Google before, who did those things before. I'm not going to use what GPT exactly said to me, but I'm going to be informed by it. And I think that's where, again, it's when people are like, they won't take your job if you're good at it. for now. So the rest of this year, I think there's a race already with people, even inside my own office. Some are getting really good at picking that and becoming better versions of themselves because they don't have to store all of that, and now they can truly be creative. If you're not like a creative problem solver, I think that's going to be a challenge for you. Because if what your thing is rote memorization and features and benefits, and I can name off the top 10 things, which is near and dear to my heart because I did great in school because I could remember things. Well, now everyone can have access to the same information I have. So what are you going to do with it? I think that's going to be the challenge. Like, great, we all know the same stuff ish, but how do you ask a question? Like, how do you ask Chat GPT? When are you going to use it? Are you going to divulge to the client that you did? I would say you should, but some people are trying to be smarter than they are and pretend that, whatever. So
It's been not too long, just a couple of years, where AI has been pretty well recognized, and some people implementing it at different levels. Where have you seen some failures that just went way off the rails from your clients, maybe not necessarily from
yeah,
yourself?
no, I've seen, it's not even necessarily AI yet, but when people were doing multiple domains with email addresses and doing all that kind of stuff and trying to do 100,000 emails a day or whatever to replace sales, I feel like AI will make that even worse if you're trying to do that at scale. And that's what I've been saying to our team is, anything you automate, AI will be even worse at it because it's going to come from your core. How good is your base data and your understanding of what's going on? And when you hook these things into that and you shoot it out to the world in infinite ways, you have infinite chances to blow up. So you still got to pick the right entry point. And obviously, I'm not going to say the name of that client. We're working with them to step them down because they got blacklisted all over the place really quickly because somebody told them that'd be a fast way for them to get new clients. And that somebody was probably an intern or some kid who just started their thing and thought they were smarter than work, and eventually, yeah, but you forgot these core values that we still like. We don't want to spam people. We don't want to get after it. And especially when you turn the gas on that, you just burnt down your whole reputation. They probably will be in a position that they may have to rebrand, frankly, with some of that to get out of it and make good on some other stuff. But yeah, like I said, for sure, not saying their name now.
Yeah, yeah. I like to say scaling stupid is just more stupid. It's just
Yeah, that's it.
doesn't
Yeah,
make
if
any
I
sense.
if I made 3 AI versions of me, I mean, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Multiplicity years ago with Michael Keaton, but it doesn't get great with third and fourth one down the line. You might start, pushing the edge, like copy of a copy, sometimes not so good.
What's one really great solution you've seen or implementation of AI with the client?
So far, I have not witnessed anything great yet. We've seen some value in them using it to help clean up their data and using it to help them get better strategically about certain deeper, larger hunts. But I've not seen anything that has like, man, that's it. It's time for me to get out of business and go work for that guy because, that's possible. I mean, I may not have the next good answer, but if someone figures it out and figures out that what we do isn't as relevant, maybe that's the thing. But so far, I've not. Have you?
Well, from a marketing side, we have seen some really good efficiencies with content.
Sure.
And then we've had some really bad ones to the point of scaling stupid is just more stupid. But doing authentic content creation with AI has worked really well for many of our clients.
So here's what I can say. You just sparked something. We were working with someone, you probably know them too. I forget the name, but they're playbook AI creator, sales
Mhm.
playbook. We've been using that and it doesn't finish everything, but it saves us a lot of time when we're putting together playbooks for clients. So then we get to spend the time really working with them on refining targets before we unleash the sales hounds, so that's been very good. That saved several hours. And now it's starting to learn how we do it. So it's becoming more efficient. I'm sure that the person in charge that could speak more eloquently to that, but that just sparked me to remember we have been engaging that, and I don't know, maybe 50 some odd playbooks have been put together with that. So
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast a couple weeks ago, and he talked about the difference between efficiency AI and opportunity AI.
there you
And
go.
most people are in that efficiency stage right now. And I think that's where we've seen real value. Opportunity is different. And I see some potential there. We have one one client who's a dentist right now that has integrated an AI advertising and appointment setting effort. So essentially, it's a vendor that came to our CMO and said, "Hey, we've been doing this for other dentists. Perhaps you guys could take a look at this." And they built a platform that's AI generated content creation that goes out on social media and I think some ads as well. And then it has an inbound functionality that is AI driven. So it can be inbound emails, chat, or voice. And all three of those are using AI to respond. So
That
inbound
makes sense.
email, it's an AI out response. Inbound chat, it's AI response. Inbound voice, it's an AI conversation.
Yeah.
And then when it hits certain levels, they'll trigger would you like to speak to someone at our office? Would you like
Yeah.
to set an appointment at someone in our office? And
So,
that's
so
where
it,
the opportunity lies, I think, in
yeah, I
something
think
like
that
that.
for sure. Now you're saying that inbound makes a lot of sense. It's almost, I mean, the dumbed down version of that is, the automated, voice person, press one if you want to do this.
Yeah.
Obviously this is the intelligent version is interacting with you. I think the other part is, especially in sales and marketing, once we all accept that that's the way we're being sold to, some of the authenticity of the interaction won't matter as much because like I mean when people scream at representative they want to get out of the tree, but the company won't let them. Sooner or later, once if they make that choice, meaning the bigger guys, you're going to have to just deal with it, and that's it. I mean, so let's see, if I want to call into my bank right now, what is the odds that I'm going to talk to a human being anytime soon? I mean, call the IRS, forget about it. I mean, any of those things. So once it's accepted, people don't like the inconvenience of it, but the efficiency will probably far outweigh your feelings in those capacities. So for us to kind of live in B2B and kind of more niche space is probably good for now. I'm curious to see how good can it get at outbound, because a lot of people can pick up on that for now. Kind of like when you see deep fake videos, you can still pick up on some of it, but it's getting closer to, I don't know. I mean, how much do you observe? And then again, if B2B companies just accept that's how they're reaching out to each other, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, what they just sacrifice for the sake of profit or efficiency.
So what do you do a lot of outbound with your clients?
We do. Yeah, we still find that in some pockets, the old school phone call is the best way to get in at higher levels. We'll surround it with LinkedIn and other things if they allow us, to use certain channels, because multi-channel approach is always best. The phone call without an email, without a voicemail doesn't make sense because the focus, the idea is you're showing that you're a human, you're showing that you're trying to create a connection. That's the only reason to call. It's not because you can solve now for activity. You could do a parallel dialer and just blast things. We've also tried offshoring. That doesn't work too well for us yet. Maybe there's some groups that'll come together that will kind of bring it to a higher level, but so far when we do that, we try it on ourselves first and we haven't found very good success. But some of the largest deals we've brought in for our clients started with a phone call.
Yeah, the old outbound cold calling job that you and I used to have, and it was a requirement. It wasn't even an
Yeah,
option. Yeah, of course you've got to do cold calling. It's
must. Yeah.
part of the job. Now it's almost shunned. Like no one wants to even think about that. And
Yeah, and I think the idea is it's the right place and right time stuff. Like our old tagline, I don't know if it's still there, is we find, we call, we connect, we sell. And the reason I kept calling there is I wanted to show people we still call. There's other things to do though, depending on who you are. There are better things to do depending on who you are. But everything works sometimes, right? I mean, I have enough evidence still that with the right person on the other side picks up, it's highly inefficient because you're going to make 100 things happen or 1,000 things to get a couple of good things, but it's really effective in the right pocket. So the trouble is picking, when's the right time? Because we have a client right now that all they want us to do is follow up on their inbound. But we're finding a lot of their inbound are not even ready to buy. They're really way early in the process. And the client is frustrated because they aren't converting fast enough. My suggestion also is like, we'll handle inbound, but like, don't you have a wish list of who would be a great client for you? Let's put human time on that. Let's hunt them down individually through LinkedIn and other places, not automated. Let's say, hey, this is Mark calling on behalf of BD Pros. I know we can really help you out. Let's talk the next time that still matters at some of those levels, especially because a lot of those buyers are our age or older. it's changing. You know, the next generation, I don't know if they're going to care. You know, they text each other when in the same stupid room. So I mean, they don't talk, man. They emote each other, the emoji. Maybe they'll sell through emojis and thumbs up and thumbs downs. No, I mean, there's no pitch here today. Sorry. But there's still, you know, at least in this pocket, you know, we're not a huge company. You know, in this pocket, there's going to be enough people who want that for now, that I think is going to last for a while for us. Who knows? Because the speed of this, though, I mean, none of us can really predict.
Yeah, the speed's moving so fast. And early on, they were suggesting that you'd have your AI selling to the other person's AI, and humans wouldn't even be part of
Right.
that discussion. I haven't seen that
Well, did you
trend
see,
yet.
is it Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn? Did you see his, he kind of trained an AI Reid, you know, he was a co-founder of LinkedIn. I mean, it was kind of interesting, but I think I haven't watched it very much, but I think he abandoned it because, you know, it was kind of kitschy, but then it's like, so what? And like,
Yeah.
that's like talking to me from 20 years ago. Like, it's just going to go based on that. Like, there's nothing, like at the moment, there's nothing unique then. There's not, like, you and I are talking now, we're kind of riffing off of things that if you talk to the AI version of me, it might try to riff now, but I don't know how good it is at going like, oh, I see what you're saying. That's how I actually feel, you know? So maybe there's a feelings part that's missing. I mean, but I am definitely no expert. I'm just trying to, you know, help our clients and make a living and take a vacation and, you know, all that human stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if you used Notebook LM before, where you can
Mm.
upload large documents, or you can give it a link to a website, and it creates a podcast episode of two AI discussing the topic, and it's in less than a few minutes. It has this 30-minute podcast built from your
Okay.
website. If you haven't tried it, it's very interesting to
You
do.
said Notebook LM.
Yeah, it's called Notebook LM. I think it's a Google product.
Yeah.
And I saw it like a year ago. People were like, "Oh my God, this is amazing! I just fed my URL into this website and it created this podcast." And I personally am not a big fan of those, those shiny objects like that. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. I mean, the technology is amazing. And then you listen to it, and it's really sounds like real guests and hosts speaking about something. But how are you going to ever use that? Like, what's
Well,
the
that's the
value of that?
yeah. So those of us who've been around for a while, maybe it's just self-serving to say that we matter, but I think we still matter. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're not done yet. I mean, depending on how you listen to, like, we're in the middle of a simulation anyway that's going to be leading to some sort of crazy AI. We are already there, and we're early in our growth of that. I remember, you know, years ago, you know, working at a trade show, and at the time, you know, our publisher was having these kids get a little corner of our magazine booth with their, you know, social media company, you know, and everyone's all, yeah, LinkedIn, that's a wave of the future, whatever, however long ago that was. And then I had a sales rep who was like, yeah, well, sign up on LinkedIn. I'm like, great. She's like, I got 4 followers. I'm like, cool. How many sales do you need this month to hit your quota? Are they all coming from those? I mean, at the time, snarky. Clearly it has changed. Clearly it has evolved. But, you know, if you jump on that fast, it's, I mean, again, I understand the kids who are doing it, they were excited, but like they were making promises they clearly can't keep. And, you know, some of the digital marketing stuff from years ago, the retargeting stuff, you know, it works, but then it doesn't sometimes. It's, again, it's another bag of tricks. Actually having a marketing degree, you know, back when people thought degrees mattered, you know, these are just channels, you know, they're evolved channels for sure. They're more intelligent channels, but like if you have a classic view of it, that's one thing to get something done, but you know, what's the purpose? And I think for a lot of our clients, since they're B2B, the purpose is authenticity and the purpose is brand promise. And you can't really fake that. You could try. And you know, for some people, it won't matter. If you're going to sell like a bucket of shoes and when they're gone, who cares, right? But if you're going to be around, well, a lot of the clients I mean, they're 20, 40, 50, 100-year-old brands. You know, they're not going to just, you know, ship it today. But again, put a kid in charge who's whatever, 25 now in 10 years. I mean, their audience, their people, I mean, the way they all follow each other and all this stuff. I mean, I don't know. It's a different economy in their mind, the way they act, you know, the way they interact. And that's marketing too, right? Like, so do you have the right audience? Do you have the right message, you know, the right channel? Soon, I mean, they're going to say, okay, boomer to me, although I'm Gen X. I'm trying to stay close. I mean, I don't need to be hip. I'm too old for that. But, you know, some of these channels are going to be interesting to see. They may not care about the things that I care about.
One of the channels that is really effective and popular that I just don't understand very well is the influencer channel.
Hmm.
But man, it works.
I know.
How have you come across that in your work in sales?
I have seen, it's interesting, even in LinkedIn, when I first started seeing influencers show up, I kind of wanted to puke. I'm like, man, kind of just please save it for like soda and stuff.
Yeah,
Like go sell shoes, man. Like that's cool. I get it. But no, really, we got Ron Reynolds showing up here now and other people who are just, crap. So in the right pockets, it makes sense. Other things I've seen that don't make sense, sort of like this. You go to trade shows and people hire spokespeople, models to work the booth, you
yeah,
know, and these ladies and gentlemen working there, they're very polished, you know, attracting people into the booth, collecting a lot of cards. However, much like giving away an iPad, you know, how many of those are really valid, when it comes to actually building your brand authentically. So, yeah, I mean, I've seen some pockets there, especially in marketing, where a couple of folks have built a pretty big following. And as a result of that, if they can do it intelligently, they help elevate their clients' brands by posting because they have a 500,000 followers or whatever it is, connections on LinkedIn even. So, hey, great. Good for you. I mean, it's kind of like, back in the early days of sales, sometimes I'm going to cold call and I see someone who's more popular than me somehow or better looking or whatever, got a better rap. I'm like, clearly the people buy from them more because I'm doing what I can with what I got. But, I think to be an influencer at that level, there's something unique about you that people are following. And yeah, and in some cases, it makes sense.
yeah. I think it's odd. I don't quite get it. I don't follow a lot of influencers myself, but I know a lot of younger
I
generation
don't.
do.
No, I am cursorily aware because we have to be. If a client's going to ask me, hey, what do you think about? I'm like, I don't have much of an opinion, but I pay attention. If you ask me about what CRM, if you ask me about, trade shows, I got a lot of knowledge for you. I'm deep on that. But this, I have a passing opinion and I can't really crap on it too much other than I don't really get it and I don't really love it. But I could see where in certain pockets, if I were to give you advice, whether it's paid or not, it might make sense for you. If it moves the needle and it fits your brand style and your voice, then yeah, get after it.
Well, it certainly works because there's a lot of influencers making a lot of money off closed sales. That's how they get
Yes.
paid. So we do know it works, or they're getting some sort of advertising dollars for.
I just what I think I'm saying is I just haven't seen it quite work in B2B manufacturing or something yet. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
There might be there honestly, there could be a pocket coming. Who knows? Because I see these guys out there, younger guys working trade shows. They're walking around, getting their content. Hey man, we're at the blah 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 PLMA show out in the West Coast selling the new yada yada nut packages for the, because we used to go out there try to help our creative services firm get new clients who are launching new brands for labeling and design and all that stuff. Hey, I don't know. These guys, they might find someone. Hey, that's cool. He's at that show. I was at, you know what I mean? I could see it. I haven't seen it specifically yet, but sure.
Yeah. It's just like as I mentioned, it's a channel that is just odd to me, but it's effective for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, as practitioners on both sides, you and I probably should be aware, even if we don't offer that service. I mean, we are not, putting together influencer channels for people. But I'm not going to knock it down if it provides value for you, then yeah, I mean, obviously.
yeah. Well, when you um, retire and you move back into your musician career, you could become an influencer for retired marketing professionals becoming musicians.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, anytime I'm sitting at a bar and I hit that jukebox, people love it. People of a certain age, people of a certain background, I got the vibe on that group and I'll stay in my lane. I'm not going to try to, pitch my musicianship to the younger generation. I'm going to keep it right where I live. Maybe some Neil Diamond for people, stuff like that.
Good. All right. Well, thank you so much,
Yeah, man.
Mark, for being on the show today. It's been fun talking to you, and I look forward to more conversations. We have a lot of similar opinions with respect to sales and marketing, and how important it is that they're aligned. And I think if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'd say the best way is just get on LinkedIn, BD Pros. You'll find me there. I don't think there's too many Marc Cases as far as I'm aware. So that's probably the best channel.
Great. And again, thanks for being on the show today, and thanks for our audience for listening. And my producers always remind me to ask you to subscribe and share the podcast for people that that might like it as well. So
Yeah,
thank you for listening.
and thank you, Joe. I mean, the things you're doing here is really cool. I love having this conversation with people, and I look forward to doing more if we can.
That's great. All right, and here's to the AI revolution that's coming, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, universal basic income. Give me some.
Yeah, that's the one benefit that might be coming soon.
I mean, if it happens, man, I'll help you get a new guitar or whatever.
And that's a wrap. There's another successful episode of the Fractional C-suite Retreat. See our show notes and more episodes at fractionalcsuiteretreat.com. This podcast is sponsored by Your CMO, helping organizations grow, save time and money with better marketing strategy and fractional execution. Visit them at yorcmo.com, yourcmo.com. Spelled wrong on purpose.